happening? There we go. All right. All right, folks. So I'm Millie, and I am one of the managers of the asset building programs at Seed. My role is primarily for partnership work. So I take a lot of Seed's programs and services. I meet with over 100 partners provincial wide, over 32 First Nation communities, and I talk about what their community needs are. We're never cookie cutter. I always, we have a conversation about what the needs are and we see what Seed can provide. And ultimately, I either train the community members themselves or they can ask Seed to come out and host and do the delivery of the programs. So, different levels of engagement. And of course, not everything is always the same. So, I love that we're very responsive to each community. Here's our land acknowledgement. I walked in on the conversation about land acknowledgement, so I'm happy to share ours at Seed. Seed respectfully acknowledges that we live and work on the territories and homeland of Indigenous peoples and that the land and water sustain us. We respect the treaties as intended by Indigenous peoples. It is our responsibility to understand the truth of our history, be aware of the present, and work with Indigenous peoples to make positive changes for the future. Our mission and our values at Seed is ultimately Seed envisions a world where opportunities exist for all people and for communities to realize their hopes. Our mission is to build strong communities and increase opportunities for people through our financial empowerment programs and services, which I'll go through hopefully in a fun, interactive way. But this is something that is near and dear to me. I really want to share with you Seed's approach when it comes to providing financial empowerment work. Often a lot of people say, Millie, what is it that you do? What does Seed do? It's not just programs. We really have our approach is about the psychology of not having enough, meeting where participants are at. And so this book called Scarcity, which we highly recommend, we have a few copies at the Seed Library. In fact, when you become a new employee at Seed, we encourage each employee to read this book so that you would understand ultimately that our participants may be faced with multiple barriers. They also have systemic racism. There could be some systemic, just red tape of bureaucratic stuff that happens all the time. And ultimately, at the end of the day, as service providers, we're here to walk alongside them and meet them where they're at, and understanding that perhaps the reason why they're 30 minutes late to attend one of our workshops is because it took them all day to prepare a meal or take care of their children, childcare. It may have been maybe mental health wise, it was really difficult for them to leave their home. So scarcity is the psychology of not having enough. And so we're not judging them or even what's the word I'm looking for? We wouldn't say you're not allowed to come into our workshop because you're 30 minutes late. In fact, it's the opposite. How can we help you get to our workshop on time in the future? And so a lot of that is accommodation. A lot of that is um, getting to the root cause of some of the situations that our participants face. And the programs I get to share with you is how we do it through financial empowerment. So, yes, highly recommend Scarcity if you get a chance to read that book. Another piece of our background and approach is understanding sustainable livelihoods is our ultimate goal. There was a group formerly known as Economos, but now it's the Women's Foundation, where they had studied well over 500 women over 5 years, I believe, or it was 100 women in 5 years. And ultimately, they discovered in their study that there were 6 stages in their lives that these participants were faced with. And really, it stemmed from stage one in crisis mode all the way through to stage six, which was a sustainable livelihood. And the piece that I want you to recognize here is that it's not very linear, it's a very circular approach. And so at Seed, we recognize that no matter how much momentum or sometimes some of the tools that we provide our participants, life shocks will always happen. And it's ultimately when those tools and resources that we provided our participants, will they be able to bounce back? And so when I speak about our programs and services, you're going to see that we sort of design it in a way for each stage in this framework. And at the bottom half of this diagram, our goal as service providers is between the stage one and three, we're ultimately helping them in survival mode. And so we try to create conditions for participation that set them up for success. And the more they get through that framework, then they get more capacity and the ability to continue participating in future mode programs and services. I hope that makes sense.
Hmm.
All
Very
right.
much.
And then we have what we call our five pillars. So it's our foundational work where, okay, so we know we need to meet participants where they're at between stage one and stage six, but how do we do that with our financial empowerment work? So we do financial literacy and coaching. A lot of that is embedded within our services. Jen, you're if you have any questions about taxes, she's a subject matter expert with taxes and benefits.
Simple taxes.
Um, and then ultimately we go into safe financial products. In fact, that is actually the history of Seed. I'd say it was maybe almost 30 years ago where the north end of Winnipeg was faced with the mass exodus of the banks that left the north end, and what actually replaced them were the fringe financial services like pawn shops and payday loans and so on. And so what ultimately happened was a
Mhm.
group of the Alternative Financial Coalition says we need to do something about this in the North End. And so we continue to work towards safe financial products. How do we encourage or how do we bring that back to the North End? We have our savings and asset building programs, which I'm excited to share with you tonight. I hear there's some folks who are really interested to hear about our savings circle programs and other match savings programs. And then in the end, we do a lot of advocacy, lots of policy work when it comes to consumer protection. Um, some examples of our consumer protection work. Well, right now, we've got a group of folks who are focused on economic abuse, right? That right now, there's a lot of fraudulent activity when it comes to investing. A lot of our senior populations are being targeted with economic abuse. Um, our payday lender participants, identifying ways of decreasing the cost of payday lending because sometimes folks don't have other choices for the matter in terms of accessing emergency funds. And affordable banking is another that we try to, those overdraft charges and NSF fees that quite can add up quite quickly. And so we did a policy sort of advocacy role for the federal government to ask the five major banks to come up with a way to not charge $40 to $60 per NSF. So those are some of the examples. All right, we're going to dive right into our seed program. So when I start sharing what they are, I'm going to try to reflect it back to that six-stage document or that presentation. And the first one is our Access to Benefits program, A to B, otherwise known as A to B. And you know what? I think this is my slide that lists them. So I'm going to go right into the other slides because it goes a little deeper. Access to benefits. So, oh, and forgive me, I should clarify that SEED is a nonprofit charitable organization. So we are income tested. We only serve folks who are low income individuals and families. However, I must say that we get requests from all different levels of income, but our mandate is for low income individuals only. Okay. So for access to benefits, we do a lot of benefit navigation, a lot of financial coaching, problem solving, access to ID. Now, what type of ID? Um, well, you know what, Jen? I'm stealing your thunder. You should do this slide. You should have
Uh,
stopped me.
you're doing good. But ID I can't talk about. So when I first started, I managed to fill most of my day before I had all of the training just doing birth certificates. And birth certificates having a birth certificate is hugely important and sometimes can be challenging based on the cost, sometimes just reading the application. Manitoba isn't necessarily the best example because it is a fairly straightforward, but we do applications for different parts of Canada, and some of the language it's a bit difficult to navigate, and they may ask for additional information, which can be difficult to get on your own. So ID, birth certificates is one. It's probably the most common. Manitoba health cards. So sometimes just navigating that system. Um, uh, the different kinds of like photo ID. So sometimes we'll help people to sort of navigate and understand the system around like MPI. We don't necessarily help with driver's license, but having the photo ID, and then also status cards. We provide a little bit of support with that. A big part of my job just has evolved over the years is I also help with replacement IRCC, Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada documents. So like permanent resident cards when someone is renewing one, and then Canadian citizenship certificates, which is particularly helpful for someone who is born outside of Canada but is also a Canadian citizen, and getting a document to show that their status in Canada. And those applications can be they seem like they're very straightforward, but they can take a lot of time. They can be quite particular, and it they can be quite stressful too at times. So ID is a big part of what I what I do at Seed, but then Millie also talked about tax returns, which is it's kind of what the doorway to accessing a lot of benefits. So for example, if you want for a lot of times if someone wants to apply for housing, like a rental, they may be asked for a tax document. If you haven't filed your taxes, you may not be able to get that housing. If you're applying for something like pharmacare, taxes are required. It's also a support document for a lot of things. There's probably a host of other examples I could think of, which I won't list because it'll take the whole time. Another really exciting program, I think, is the Registered Education Savings Program, the RESP, which helps parents to save for their children to save for future for post-secondary education. We also work a little bit, I don't know if so this started before I started at Seed, but I'm doing a lot of this work now is there's a program with the what used to be known as the Boys and Girls Club of Winnipeg. I think they're Winnipeg BGC now. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. And they host a program called CSI. And when children complete those programs, I guess elementary age children, when they complete that program, it's a summer program to kind of continue their education over the summer in that gap. Um, when they finish that program, the child may be eligible for a bursary, which can then be used for post-secondary education after they turn 18. And then we will help them to open a registered education savings plan because that helps to maximize that bursary to access a benefit that the federal government also gives someone when they open an RESP, and also to add to contribute to their add to their contributions. And then Millie talked about a little bit the I guess the last two. So bank accounts, we do help people to open a bank account, which can be pretty instrumental in a lot of things, especially if you're needing to cash checks or just have a way to save money, right? A different way to save money. And then, of course, Millie talked about government benefits, so helping people to fill out applications, but also to just, kind of understand different benefit programs that may be out there, and sometimes even helping them to find them. So that navigation is also a pretty important part of the work that we do in access to benefits.
Super. Thank you, Jen. All right. No questions yet, no hands. I'm going to keep going. Okay. So how do folks access Jen and the team? So here's the aha moment, folks. You'd be surprised that we book appointments only Monday mornings. And the demand is so high that by the time it hits 9:30 in the morning, we are full at capacity for the week.
Oh,
And so folks have to call in back every week to see if they can get an appointment. And so it's just the volumes are way too high. And so that's why it's so important for partnership work where we embed and train other partner organizations to do this work. So we're creating a dynasty of financial empowerment work across Manitoba. But that's the volumes. I can't. I wish I could say it's improved, but we still fill up before 9:30 every Monday morning. All right, match savings programs. Here we go. The famous Savings Circle program. So, match savings, what is that? So, ultimately, there are two things that happen. Participants want to learn money management, the skills of budgeting, data gathering, what money choices, needs and wants, understanding credit, debt management. We have 8 workshops that are primarily about 2 hours each, and participants who are accepted into the Saving Circle program are asked to attend each workshop and also take part in some financial coaching and problem solving of their own. And then while they're taking the classes, they're encouraged to with an incentivized savings plan. They can open an account with Assiniboine Credit Union, that's our partner for the program, and they can save $250 over 46 months. Now, that's an average of about $42 a month. And then once they achieve by like completing all 8 classes, they've done all their homework and reach the 250, they will receive match funding of 3 to 1. They will receive $750. And in addition to their own savings of 250, that's a combined total of $1,000 to go towards an asset that they need. Some very popular assets would be a laptop computer for education and employment. A bed is another popular asset purchase for a lot of large families. I'm sorry to report, but there's a lot of bed bug infestation, so getting new beds and mattresses is really important for their health and mental health. So basic furniture, tables, chairs, couches, and so on. For major appliances, there's one thing. Most of our participants are renters. And so if they're going to buy a fridge, we just want to make sure if they move, they can take that fridge with them. So those are some of those conversations we have. Other asset purchases could be health related. A lot of our folks don't have insurance or the coverage for dental, um, eyesight, even braces for their children, anything, or even tattoo removal. If that's preventing them from actually gaining employment, they can use the funds for tattoo removal. Another one would potentially be RESPs, saving for post-secondary education, business startups. Um, an example would be here's a success story of a Savings Circle participant that I worked with. I had a gentleman that was probably in his 60s and was really discouraged in how to start life all over again. Went through some really difficult times, some life shocks, faced homelessness, went through our Savings Circle program and said, "What do I do?" That he wanted purpose. And so I said, "Well, what do you like to do?" And I discovered that he liked landscaping, gardening, cutting grass. And so in the 4 to 6 months of, encouraging him to save the 250, we discovered that why don't we save up for a lawnmower so you could do some landscaping or cutting grass in the north end of the city. And so he did. And then it became 3 lawnmowers, and then it became 6 lawnmowers. And then he eventually moved over to the paw, where he ended up opening, well, it was grass cutting and snow removal, and now he has his own business in the paw. And so just thinking that that actually happened because he attended one of our workshops and started saving for a lawnmower. To this day, we still keep in touch, through email. And he'll say, "Millie, I need you to do my taxes." I'm like, "Nope, you make too much. Bye." You've moved on. So it's really nice to see the impact of what Saving Circle can do to a lot of folks. Okay. And that's not all, folks. Recognizing that Saving Circle probably meets participants at stage 1 or 2, where they start to engage with community organizations. But we recognize that people need that momentum. They need to keep going. We want to harness that ability to keep saving. And so once they complete Saving Circle, we have what's called the IDA program. I'm not in love with this name, but it is what it is. It's called the Individual Development Account. And it's a larger savings opportunity where they save 1,000 over a 12-month period, and it's a 2 to 1 match. So 1,000 plus the $2,000 match will go 3,000 towards a bigger asset. Now, it's not quite as easy as getting furniture because it's a big ticket item, like it's a bigger amount of savings. It's more for education, business startups, Canadian citizenship fees, also ability supports like dental and disability needs. Oh, they can even use this for co-op housing shares if that's something that they want to move into. And then ultimately a contingency fund, an emergency savings like a TFSA or RESP, or an RDSP, which is a Registered Disability Savings Plan. Okay. Now, this is the dynasty I was referring to. So Seed's not the only community organization that does this. So part of my work is helping these community organizations, as you can see, that offer Saving Circle. We also have two organizations, Manitoba Possible and ERCOM, that offer both Saving Circle and IDA. And then across the board, we have folks who dabble a little bit in access to benefits, but the ones that provide a lot of access to benefits work would be Community Financial Counseling Services and New Journey Housing. So our partnership is growing significantly. A question I get a lot is, Millie, how do we become a member of Empower Manitoba? And I jokingly say, but it makes sense. You have to date me first. Like I need to see if you fit the criteria of Seed's values. Um, it's not easy to become a partner. I need to see how committed you are. I need to see the folks you serve. Are they low income? Are they faced with multiple barriers? Like it's got to be the right fit, right? So a lot of the time, if they're like, we're an organization, we want to embed this, well, let's have Seed come out and host it and see what the response is within the community. Now we move on to the actual workshops. So not only do we have the 8 core curriculum workshops like budgeting and credit and debt, what we've discovered is we were invited about in 2011. Yeah, 2011, the Indigenous Senior Resource Center had invited Seed to do the workshops. And the elders and seniors in that organization said, we would love to work with you to create an Indigenous curriculum so that we could share our stories and impact Indigenous youth. Born Money Stories. Here's a picture of the pandemic days. We had our Indigenous youth attend our workshops online. Uh, and so this is an example of our workshops that we deliver daytime, evening, weekends, and we travel. We travel to First Nation communities offering these workshops. Yeah, so here's just a quick, it's customized. A lot of Indigenous teachings are storytelling, so we embed a lot of storytelling within the curriculum, sharing circles. Um, and to boot, we hire 10 Indigenous youth every summer through the Canada Summer Jobs funding from ESDC. And we hire what we call them is junior facilitators, where we train them how to facilitate some transferable skills like administration, office work, but build their confidence and gain some employable skills so that after the summer months they can apply for jobs. And so we've been able to retain some of the youth. They sometimes extend their terms at Seed and then they move on. And it's a tight-knit community. The family, I keep in touch with a lot of the youth. They come around and visit and take our food. But they also
And we miss I don't know, I think we all get a little teary-eyed when the program ends because it's just seeing the development
yeah,
from where they started to where they are at the end. Like, yeah, it's really amazing.
it is amazing. Oh, just seeing some of these pictures.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And here's an example. So look, that's a beautiful photo, isn't it?
Oh.
That was taken at a sweat lodge. So a part of the summer program is not only money management, but also getting them in touch with their culture again. And so that could be medicine picking, it's the sweat lodge, it's land-based teachings with the elders. So here's an example of a group that went out for a sweat lodge. Yeah. Okay. Drum making, the drum that
No,
she's
yes.
holding in there, they would make their own drums. Yeah, it's wonderful. All right. I take credit for this Bieber photo. I took this picture. Uh, it was so adorable until it hissed at me. They're terrifying. But this was on a road up near Norway House Cree Nation. So Seed had received funding from IG Wealth to take our programs and deliver it within First Nations. And they asked us to start with 2, and now we're over 32. We're embedded within 32 First Nations all over Manitoba. And so what I love about this is that we take identification, our taxes and benefits, our money management training, and access to banking on the road and try to build capacity for all. And they just love it because it's because of their locations, how isolated they are. how minimal, unfortunately, some of the federal or provincial benefits can come around. They're just so excited that we're willing to travel and start training their own staff to do this work. So exciting, love it. I get to meet beavers. Here's some pictures. On the left is show Lake 40, so we get some partnerships from the Ontario border as well. And on the right-hand side is Norway House Cree Nation, where Chief and Council had invited me to speak to the councilmen to let them know what our programs can do. Now, what's interesting here is I really want to stress the importance of relationship building with the communities. Um, it's we started this years and years, and IG Wealth had recognized how important it was to take seed and let them lead this program versus them in their suits going into First Nation communities. So I love the fact that they recognize that we're actually the ones that go in, or we're invited to go in, and they're the ones that tell us what they need, and we work alongside them.
Millie,
Yeah,
when you refer to IG Wealth, is that Investors Group
it
Wealth?
is. It is
Okay.
Investors Group. Yeah,
So they're a for-profit business, though, aren't they?
they are. They are. And they basically reached out to us about 5 years ago. And I believe it was right when the calls to action started to come out with the TRC calls to action.
Yeah.
And they recognized the importance of removing those barriers and then funded us for 2 years. And now we're in our third iteration of the funding. They've renewed us a third time. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm yeah, and so here's another example of the work we do. We go to Thompson. Sometimes it's impossible for us to go to every First Nation community, so we'll do a large event. So we were invited to go to Thompson, where we use their community center, and then busloads of folks from surrounding First Nation communities will come out and access our ID, taxes. CRA will attend, Service Canada will be there. MPI attended last year and did MPI photo IDs for folks. And we'll also have the healthcare folks come in and do vaccinations and any health related supports as well. So we call them our super clinics of financial empowerment. Yeah. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to note here is it's not always chief and council. It could literally be someone who took Seeds programs and went back home to their community and said, we need this here. It could be a teacher. It could be someone that works in their CED department. It could be CFS. It could be Jordan's principal. There's not one particular position. So it's very organic. That's how I want to say this. It's very organic, where they recognize Seeds work and like come out and see what, and I call them the change makers. Those are the ones that really value the work and want to work with us. In fact, they open their homes to us. So there's not a lot of places to sleep when we're traveling in these First Nation communities. So my first time in Norway House, I had to, a family had opened their doors to me. And sadly, the two boys, their rooms, they were either Edmonton Oiler fans or Montreal Canadiens. Like, oh, goodness gracious, I have to sleep in one of these rooms. Anyway.
It, Millie may be a Jets fan. Full disclosure.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
yes.
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I did sleep in the Montreal Canadiens room. Anyway, I survived. All right. And then we move on to standalone. And what I call standalone money management training. These are the 80, on average, 80 requests per quarter that we receive that says, hey, Millie, can someone on your team come out and do a budgeting workshop? Hey, Millie, can you talk about taxes and benefits? 80 per quarter, folks, is how much we get. And so ultimately, we have individual workshops. We have a la carte topics here. We have something that was really new during the pandemic was tenant insurance because goodness gracious, the amount of fires and floods that were happening to low-income individuals and families, that was difficult to navigate. Life insurance and wills, it's something that a lot of folks don't recognize is important. And then the train the trainer. So you're stuck with me for 3 days. If you want to learn how to facilitate, take the curriculum and embed it within your organization. So that
Yeah.
can happen too. Yeah. We host about 3 to 6 train the trainer
Yeah.
sessions every year. Yeah. Okay. And more drop-in events. Here's another partnership, the Family Resource Centers in Winnipeg. There are 24 Family Resource Centers situated in like Manitoba housing sort of communities. And so we've partnered up with our partners like EIA, Community Financial
Yeah.
Counseling Services.
And
COHC. Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
and I was going to say, I don't know if I'm assuming, but EIA would be the social assistance program for the province. CFCS is the Community Financial Counseling Services, which is they offer low cost and free financial literacy and debt. I guess
Counseling.
finan counseling,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then CUHC is Community Unemployed Help Center, which also they're an advocate organization. So they their focus historically has been around advocacy around employment and income assistance, which is social assistance, and employment insurance, as
Hmm.
well as I think a little bit of CPP. Yeah, so they're pretty integral partners, I would say. Yeah.
Yes. And here's a picture of our outdoor pandemic days at Family Resource Centers. Here's another one at our Elmwood Community Resource Center. Aw, I miss these days.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Actually, if you're wondering how many people attend our drop-in events, I remember the first one that we did was at Norwest Community Health, and we had served over 300 individuals our first time. And so we thought, wow, this is really effective. It's very valuable. So now we offer our drop-in events across all the family resource centers. And yeah, we'll continue to do it through United Way.
yes.
United Way is our funder for that one. So it continues to thrive. Okay. So if you ever get the chance to go to Seed at 80 Salter, I've just shared with you access to benefits and then our asset building programs. That's half the building. Now I'm going to take you to the back of the building where we offer what's called our BDS, our business development services. And what they do is they offer free small business training programs available to all Manitobans to launch a business. Whatever stage in life they may be, it could have been they had owned a business and had to close for whatever reason, they want to restart. They may just have an idea for a business. Whatever stage they're at, they'll be attached to a consultant at Seed and be coached on how to launch their business again. It's a lot more training than I'm actually sharing. I don't know how
Yes.
many modules they have, but it's extensive. I think for
I think
us,
it's
go ahead, Jen. Yeah.
Oh no, no, I think it's at least eight.
Is it at least 8? Yeah,
I think so.
perfect.
Yeah.
But I feel like their frequency is much higher. For
Yeah.
us, we're like once a week. With them, I think they do 2 to 3
It's
times a week.
yeah. The
It's
last one was I think 8 weeks and 3 days a week.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in true seed fashion, we need to talk about social enterprises. Like that is part of our blood there at Seed is supporting social enterprises, participating in feasibility studies, assisting marketing operations, literally driving our participants around to see, location wise, if that would be the best fit, financial modeling and so on. So yeah, it's amazing. Some of our favorite social enterprises would be Large Tova. Um,
Oh yes.
that would
Yeah.
be in Transcona. We also have our Diversity Foods, which is a chain between, oh man, there's so many of them. There's the Buffalo Stone Cafe at Fort White Alive. There's also the University of Winnipeg. They're everywhere. I'm just
Yes.
blanking out. And some of the businesses that have launched, one of them that I'm obsessed with is Sleepy Owl Bakery. If you haven't had a chance to check them out, now I always get them confused. Either it's Wall or Aaron, one of those,
Oh.
where Sleepy Owl
Yes.
Bakery is located.
And now I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah.
And what relationship does Seed Winnipeg have with Sleepy Owl?
So what happened was originally we were the ones that coached the couple that wanted to launch the bakery. And so that business consulting program that with BEST, which is the Business and Enterprise Support and Training, they had gone through that. Now, what's interesting though, through the pandemic, the couple actually had to close the bakery. But we loved it so much, we're like, why don't diversity take it on and create a social enterprise? So it's now still alive and running because we wanted to focus on creating Sleepy Owl as a social enterprise, and now it's a part of Diversity Foods. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Oh, thank you, Jen. She put it
Yes.
in the chat. Okay. Last but not least is our loans for skilled immigrants, also known as recognition counts. So recognition counts is ultimately what it is. It's loans up to 30,000 for folks, for immigrants who come to Canada and are faced with the harsh reality that they may have been nurses back home or a profession where they come to Canada and they said, nope, we don't recognize that. You're going to have to start all over again and take your classes and get recertified. And for a newcomer family to do that when they're settling, it's nearly impossible to do so. And so, if you're thinking about how to get a loan, you need credit history, whereas through the Recognition Counts program, it's character based. And so, up to $30,000, a maximum term of 7.5 years, very flexible payment arrangements. And the term right now is ACU's, Assiniboine Credit Union's prime rate. I quickly took a look at the rate yesterday, and it's at 4.45 currently percent for loans. Our very first recognition counts participant was a dentist from Egypt. And I can't remember what position he was working, whether it was a 7-Eleven or a taxi cab driver in Winnipeg, but he was the very first one to go through recognition counts, and now he is a certified dentician. Like he is a
Wow.
dentist now running, up and running. Yeah. And we do get a lot of nurses through this program, but we need nurses.
Yes.
Manitoba needs
Yeah.
nurses. So that's something that we're very proud of as well. And this one actually, we are looking at, we need some help actually in increasing awareness of this program. So if anyone in this room may have any ties with newcomer organizations all over Manitoba, we'd be happy to connect you with our Recognition Counts team because they are seeking supports in outreach for this program right now. Yeah. And I love cats and fur babies and beavers. But there you go. Thank you so
Yes.
much for listening, and I'm happy to take questions or comments.